More on this now with Han Tan. He's Chief Market Analyst at Nemo Money and joins us from Dubai. Really good to have you back with us, Han. Another reprieve, it seems, for Trump's new trade tariffs, which were set to take effect on Wednesday. Markets had been gearing up, though, for the July 9 deadline. So what does this mean for investors now?
I think now it means a period of caution. I think that's expected to reign across markets over the next couple of days, right? And no surprise that, as you mentioned earlier, stock indices in Asia are falling. Futures are in the red for Europe and the US. So it does tell us that there is a risk of tone, right? But I think to add to the word caution I used earlier, I think there is cautious optimism that the worst case scenario is behind us. At least there is a path towards striking trade deals with the Trump administration. So I think markets will be holding on to that hope, again, that cautious optimism over the next couple of days.
Now, since Trump announced the first delay back in April, we know a number of countries have been scrambling to forge trade deals with the US. But what are the potential consequences for countries that fail to secure an agreement with the US by this new August 1st deadline?
Yeah, I think in short, it does imply a challenging time for that economy, right? Because not only will have the exporters on ground have to battle with the higher barrier to entry to the US, which is the largest economy in the world, but then in order to navigate or hedge against that risk, they then have to scramble and strike trade deals with other economies and try to find new customers, right? And who knows, those other countries could possibly be contending with their own set of challenges with the Trump administration. So although I don't expect a total rewriting of the global trade order, but certainly it is a time of volatility and uncertainty, not just for markets, but also exporters and importers as well.
And Han, we know the whole idea about this tariff regime is to basically reshore production to the United States. Trump says it'll ultimately help boost the world's biggest economy. But we're already hearing from producers and businesses in the US saying that this tariff regime will hurt them and, by extension, consumers across the country. What's your view? Do you think this tariff regime will actually help the United States or set it back?
I think it's more productive to look at it from a short-term lens and a long-term lens, right? So for the short term, I think there is this consensus that it would hurt the consumer. We are seeing some of the softer sentiment data showing that the consumers are already worried about the potential impact from these tariffs. I think having said that, it's important to note, if you look at the jobs data that came out, there is still some pretty surprising resilience in the US economy, right? So that's for the short term, perhaps a net negative effect. But over the long term, if these tariff policies actually have the intended effect, that could really rebalance how much the US is actually acting as a manufacturing base versus a net importer to the rest of the world. So it's a wait and see for the long term, obviously.
Meantime, we've got the BRICS group of emerging economies meeting in Brazil. They didn't reference Donald Trump by name, but they've essentially condemned these trade protectionist measures that Trump has introduced. Trump has responded by threatening higher tariffs on BRICS countries and those who support them. What do you see happening there?
Yeah, I think it's once again, it's a good old tariff tactic that the Trump administration uses, at least just to wield about that big stick, right? Ultimately, he wants to bring them to the table. Now, what we see that is from the threat to what actually transpires in reality, there's bound to be some dilution anyways, right? At the end of the day, again, markets are comforted by the knowledge that President Trump wants to strike a deal. How substantive that deal is, how disruptive that deal is, I think that all depends on what happens at the negotiating table, right? So I think while there is some jostling, some geopolitical jostling here, I think there's a lot more twists and turns in really how much influence the BRICS or Western economies can really exert in the absence of this US administration that has really pulled back from the global stage.
Okay, Han Tan, really good to get your thoughts as always. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.